Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Large Blast podcast, the best podcast about Warhammer 40,000 around. I'm your host, Stoney, and I'm joined, as always, by Welshie.
Hello.
And Matt.
I'm turning Japaneser.
So we're here, and on today's show, we're going to be talking about what some heartless, horrible people would call Warhammer's most boring, lamest, crappiest race, which would be the Tau Empire. But not us here on the Large Blast podcast. We like to give everyone a fair crack of the whip. And so before we get stuck into that, we're going to do a little something that everybody likes to call hobby progress, where we talk about what we've been doing hobby-wise. So Matt, what have you been up to?
Not a great deal. It's only been a week since we last recorded. I have tried desperately to finish my scenery to go in my 28 mag entry, which is very nearly complete. And I'm about to finish the 10 Electro Priests that I started 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And other than that, that's been it, really.
All right, just crack it on with same old, same old. All right.
Yeah.
What about you, Welshie? Anything interesting?
28 mag, obviously, but expect a video on that in the future, so I won't go too much into that. I've got the base layer on the main figure done now, so it's on to highlights. But more exciting, I've been building my transgeneration noise marines. So,
okay.
Modern day bodies and heads with the weapons from the original 1990s metal noise marine sculpts and backpacks from the same sculpts that I've milli putted. So they're a kind of real meld of the two ends of the timeline for Chaos Space Marines, and I think they're gonna look all right, actually.
Nice, sounds good. I was thinking when you said transdimensional that some of them had beards, some of them were little kids. Transgenerational, sorry.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah,
no, they're all pretty much the same size. But what I have used is the I've built my own Doom Siren. So, you can give one of the squad a Doom Siren.
The sort of vocal.
I've built like a mini organ coming out of his backpack. It looks a bit like, the thing on the back of the Exorcist tank.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the Chaos version of that.
Oh, Welshie, once again we have crossed over. Like that's what I made for my my noise marines as well. I made a mold of that. Yeah. But to be honest with you, that is on one of the. I think it's an old Chaos Lord model, a really old Spanish Lord that's got this. He's got a wicked. The actual model itself is a bit dodgy, but he's got this wicked backpack that's basically. As described, a kind of weird twisted organ thing coming out the back.
Yeah. I've got the kind of organ pipes, in the kind of up and down shape, getting increasingly big and small. And then I took your tip and used the bits from the Warp Talon jump packs as kind of speakers hanging off the sides as well that you suggested.
Yeah.
So they look pretty cool as well.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
So, I've got him as the champion with the original face with the massive speaker coming out of his mouth that's like wider than the actual head of the model.
Yeah, it is a bit of a dodgy sculpt, that one.
Yeah, but I love it. It's like the eyes popping out. It's really strange.
Yeah,
so they're a bit of a mashup, but I'm hoping when they've got some paint on, they'll look all right.
He looks like one of those tribal guys that puts like a plate in their mouth,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but he just shoved a speaker in there.
Yeah. What about you?
Right. That's cool. Well, nothing particularly interesting. I've just got a bunch of boring stuff to do at the moment, so I haven't had a whole bunch of time for Warhammer. So ZBrush is been my thing that I've been doing. So it's still cracking on with that. Nothing interesting to report. So a nice quick hobby progress for you this week. The news, it's here. Everybody loves it. We all know you do. Don't tune out, please, God. So what is going on with the news? We got
the first
Gathering in 40k.
Yeah.
Super nerds.
Super dweebs are coming our way, guys, because 40k is expanding into the Magic the Gathering cards game, which I've never played and refused to play. But it seemed like pretty big news for bearded men in their 30s.
So there's going to be a kind of Magic the Gathering version of 40k.
Yeah.
All right.
A card game.
Okay, well, I mean, I know that there's been a couple of quite successful mobile games, like card game, mobile Warhammer 40. I know someone that's super addicted to a deck building 40k card game thing that's a mobile thing. So
there's Yeah, they brought out there's a Horus Heresy one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there is like a potential for it, but this is, yeah, I mean, it just seems like Games Workshop are branching out into all sorts of stuff. I mean, this is a bit like, to be honest with you, after hearing they're making a Marvel comic, stuff like this doesn't surprise me as much.
No,
this seems more in their kind of wheelhouse, but at the same time, it is still a bit like, not what I would be expecting.
Yeah, or want to play. But you see, I'm looking at this thinking, card games are everything. Are like the antithesis to everything I love about Warhammer. Painting a solid piece of plastic, rolling loads of dice, and putting it on a 6 foot by 4 foot board.
Yeah.
I wonder whether the Magic people think the same. Are there that many crossovers? I know none of our group of friends do.
I can see that there are. I mean, well, this is where I'm going to shock you, Welshie, because I used to be a Magic hound.
This is the news.
Back in 2012, that sort of time. Jesus, I've got a stack of Magic cards sat upstairs in my attic, which is my retirement fund. I'm waiting on those bad boys to mature, and then I'm going to cash them in and be living that high life.
Are they in airtight sleeves?
They are indeed. Well, some only the expensive. Anyway, that doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there.
Expensive ones. Oh,
the important thing is that there is. So I can kind of see the crossover because you've got this deck building element. Like a big thing about Magic is like putting together like a good deck, which is a bit like a kind of a army building thing. And I mean, yeah, it is a different crowd. You just move in. It's like 15 minutes or so per game, and then you're off and you're done, and you can just move on with your life. So it is a bit different, but yeah, interesting to see.
Did they explain what the crossover was? What are Games Workshop doing? Are they making cards that fit into, like, what's the crossover?
Well, I mean, I'm guessing that this is Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast are the people that own
Say what?
Magic. Like Wizards of the Coast are the name of the company that own Magic the Gathering, and they also own like fucking D&D and all this stuff. They're huge. They're like a Games Workshop powerhouse in themselves. So I can imagine that this is probably just an IP swap. Wizards of the Coast will have 1 million games ready to roll out, I should imagine, that are similar to this. And then these card games, they're paper money, like they literally just print cardboard and people pay fucking £2.50 for a bag of cardboard. It's crazy.
All right, so next up is just a model. It's not actually made it into Model Spotlight because there's something else coming later, but it's the really cool Kritzer the Rat Pit Prince model.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys would have seen this around, and this is fucking awesome. It's very disturbing kind of human guy with a bunch of rats all over him.
It
massive
makes me feel
rats,
very uncomfortable.
All these rats coming out from under his cloak. It's another really cool model. This is Warhammer Quest, is it?
Yeah, vampire from the new Cursed City game.
Oh, it's a vampire. Okay.
Yeah, I
really
think so.
cool.
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, it's super sick. I mean, it's more fucking wins for this range. Like this game, I'm not even sure this game's out yet, and I want every model that I've seen from this range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sold 1 million copies worldwide.
Success.
Bang! Yeah.
But the how skinny this guy is what I really love. Inside that coat, he's just emaciated.
Every one of these characters that we've seen just has so much personality and just something about them. They've just nailed it. They're kind of just the fine details or something. They're not big and chunky. They're not like too oversized. Their hands and things are the right size. It's crazy. It's really a step up.
I've just had an idea. If our man Mr. Nico Miller was here, he loves the old Inquisitor game, and maybe Battlefleet Gothic won't be the next game they bring back. Maybe they will bring back, was it 58mm, 48mm, whatever, a large scale. If Games Workshop brought out models designed this well at a larger scale to the old Inquisitor rule set, I mean, these models are just amazing. But if they were a slightly bigger scale, I think they'd sell them to people that didn't even know what Games Workshop was. Yeah, they'd sell models everywhere. They're just incredible.
Yeah. Hold on to your rat tail coats because you heard it here first.
Inquisitors coming back.
But just out of curiosity, just for me, like Warhammer Quest is like an individual box game, isn't it? It's like
it's like
something
Blackstone Fortress.
Yeah, so you can buy it without even not being into Warhammer if you're just into that sort of shit.
Yeah, and it's fucking
quality.
Beautiful. Though I didn't, I was a bit confused because this guy wasn't in the preview day for the actual box, so I don't know if they're already bringing out add-ons to Warhammer to the box. But
yeah, I was going to say because Blackstone Fortress has had all the add-ons, so maybe this is like the first one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could definitely see this, being like an add-on quest. We get this guy and a bunch of rats and something like that. Yeah, I mean that would be
really
sick.
Cool.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the strength of the model alone, you could sell that in an individual box set. Do you know what I mean? You could do that with a bunch of them. So yeah,
I have kind of thought about buying the box. I showed Abby the models. I was like, look at these, the ones that are in the graveyard that are lifting up the gravestones. I said like, oh, these are real like Abby models. They're like zombie skeletons lifting up a graveyard. And she was like, oh, I'm interested. Let me see them. And I was like, look at them. And she was like, oh, they're really cool. Like,
I get it, but I just know I wouldn't really paint it. I know it would just sit and be overtaken by my 40k.
Yeah.
But the standalone game is quite interesting because you could buy them, you can make the models quite quickly, and bang, you've got a game. You don't have to buy anything else.
I mean, I might I'm the same. I might just buy it, and if I can't think of anything to do with it, just leave it wrapped up and sell it in 10 years because these models, people are going to want these forever, man.
Yeah, you're right.
Cool. So Exorcist chapter, new rules, new guys. What's going down with them?
Well, I have seen this shoulder pad when you buy a box of Space Marines and thought, why have they given me a Chaos shoulder pad in my box of Space Marines? And I knew very little about the Exorcist chapter. Have you guys either heard of them before?
I mean, I think that I've seen them here and there on, Daka or whatever, and always just kind of assumed it was sort of a bit like space sharks or red scorpions or whatever they are,
I think I've heard of them, but you say they're on the transfer sheet.
So when you get there, the time that I saw them is when I bought a Death Watch box, and in the Death Watch box you get like 15 different chapters for their other shoulder, their non-Death Watch shoulder, and this is one of them. So they're really cool. I did a little bit of research on them. Only the Ordo Malleus Inquisition know what their actual gene heritage is, but people kind of think they might be Imperial Fists. But part of their training is that they have to be possessed by a demon host. And then they have to be a demon host. They have to be possessed by a demon, which then gets cast out of them by the Inquisition. And that's part of their training. And like the Grey Knights, none of them have ever fallen to chaos. But no one really knows what their gene is.
It sounds like they're all chaos already. They've all got demons living inside them. That's bobbins.
This is,
Homeworld is called Banish.
That'd
be like the Thousand Suns being no body has fallen to chaos. Technicality are all a bunch of dust.
So I just thought that was a cool bit of lore. So this is in White Dwarf. So like we've seen with the Emperor's Spears and that.
So they run a real publishing it every month. Then this is like a real seem to be building it up.
Yeah.
So do we have a color scheme for these boys? We've got their shoulder pad here, and it's sort of a cream and red type thing going on. But have we got a full paint for one of them?
There probably is in the Space Marines Codex somewhere. I think they're kind of original Horus Heresy Thousand Suns. The crimson rather than the
that sort of metallic-y red.
Yeah. But their symbol's cool, and these Index Astartes are cool because if you've been a real like lore nerd and you've built up an army of this, it's just great to get a rule. This is just an army-wide rule that if you play Exorcist, you can actually use in a game. You're sat there thinking, "Oh, this is cool that I've put all this time into a really obscure chapter," but they haven't released any rules.
Flavor.
I just think it's nice. I would like to see the same thing done for all of the other armies, but hey, well, I mean, it's a bit telling if they're giving away transfers for them. I mean, they're not doing that with space sharks or any of these other obscure factions, so
Maybe they're due for a bit of a ramp up. Maybe we're going to get a special character or whatever.
Yeah,
maybe that's the missing Primarch. It's the Primarch of these dudes. Who knows?
Possibly.
Yeah, heard it here first. Predictions.
Or maybe it's this: the cardboard tube, the humble cardboard tube. Talking of White Dwarf, I was reading the White Dwarf from, I think it's February's White Dwarf, and in the beginning of every magazine, they have a write-in section where people write into the magazine, and there was one particular letter which I was meant to reread today before the episode, and I haven't, and so this is flying from memory. But there was a young boy, evidently a young boy, writing in saying, essentially, I can't buy the plastic terrain because it's very expensive, and I want to buy all the plastic models. So I'll buy your plastic models, and I want to build terrain. How do I build terrain? And White Dwarf, and I just wanted to mention this because we've spoken about it numerous times, and I thought it was quite poignant because the White Dwarf actually responded to him, telling him that he could make terrain out of anything he finds. Polystyrene packaging is very good for terrain. Cardboard is very good for terrain. Loads of things are very good for terrain. You can find anything in your recycling bin to make terrain out of, and you can use the internet to find out how to make it into terrain. And I just thought that was brilliant. It was the first time I've seen Games Workshop talk about building terrain and not buying it for a long time.
Do you think that this is going to massively impact their terrain sales now? People are like, what?
Yeah.
You can make stuff out of bog rolls?
But I just, it was good because it for the last 5 years, maybe longer, Games Workshop have become very, the IP is everything. So you don't get anything mentioned in Games Workshop that isn't completely 100% manufactured by Games Workshop, and I guess that's understandable. But as we've said before, like 20 years ago, they would have supporting material that would show you how to build terrain from scrap, and it was just good. And it was obviously a young person who, as we said, can't afford to buy all the terrain, and they were like, it was
what's wrong with young people's imagination today?
Just before we go into the real model spotlight, I wanted to bring this up, Stoney, because it was only last week you were talking about the really scuzzy Necromunda gang, and I can't remember what you called it, but this is a new Cawdor model called Rattus Tatterskin, which kind of fit the description I thought you were given last week.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't. I was thinking they were called the Scavies or something. They were like an actual gang. But this guy's quite cool. He's like a Quasimodo-esque Cawdor guy.
He's got rats on him as well.
Yeah, he's mates with the vampire man. Yeah, I just thought it was really cool. He's got a noose around his neck and like a homemade Blue Peter heavy stubber.
Yeah, and an MF Doom mask, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brian, Jason, Rory Little, Taylor, Pathia7, War Surge, and Monu Brown from Brown Games, who've been nice to us on the Instagram recently.
And all of the Tau Empire, because we love them.
For the greater good.
So, some people are rude about them. They call them fish camels. They say they're rubbish pussy holes hiding in big suits shooting guns on the other side of the field. Well, that's not us. Don't you worry about it. We love the Tau now because we've been researching them this week for this week's Tau episode. And I believe that to kick things off, as is tradition, Welshie has prepared a lore quiz for me and Matt to pitch against each other.
That is correct. It is now tradition. The first question I would like you to do, because some of the listeners might not be familiar with the xenobiology of a Tau, I'd like you together, just to work together on this one, for 30 seconds between you, to describe a Tau, and I'd like you to focus on how are they different to a human, and I'm going to ban the words fish and camel, and while I'm at it, pussy holes.
Okay, Stoney.
Burn victim. Blue burn victim.
Blue burn victim.
No nose.
They don't have a nose. Yeah, they've got hoofs. They don't walk on their heel. They don't use their ankle something like
a
that.
bit-
They've
yeah,
got
they're a
3
bit like-
fingers and a thumb.
They kind of look like Chad avatars. You remember like Avatar, that movie?
Yeah,
But they're
yeah.
all like thin and spindly. Like, I mean, they're not really big, but they're like, I mean,
They're shorter than a
40k version of
Yeah.
Avatar. So like a big chinned
Yeah.
Avatar.
Oh, okay. That's your 30 seconds. So I've got a list here of differences to humans, and you got some of them. You got hooves. You got 3 fingers and 1 thumb. That's very specific, Matt. Well done. Slightly shorter than a human, slightly weaker than a human. I'm going to give you blue color because Avatar basically means blue color. And then the other major differences between humans.
They can suck their own dicks.
They are very bendy, correct.
They don't have any dicks.
And they have that slot in the middle of their face.
Oh,
the
that's it.
eye-shaped slot.
Yeah.
They can see better than humans, so they have a better visible range, but they have less good depth perception because their pupils can't dilate, apparently. And their smell organs are in their mouth, so they smell through their mouth because they don't have a nose, they've just got a hole in the middle of their head. So that's a towel, people. That is what towel look like. So let's heat it up to real lore.
Sure. So if you see one, make sure to report him to your local inquisitor.
Yeah, definitely. Dirty Xenos. You'll smell him first.
So I want to know the common name, kind of in common imperial parlance, for the philosophy of the Tau that states all species in the Empire, regardless of origin, will work for the collective betterment of all.
Greater good.
Yeah.
Straight in there. The greater good. That is the main Tau philosophy. If you haven't heard of it before, it's also known as communism.
In space.
Space communists.
But I mean, this is really the cornerstone to what the Tau are, isn't it? This idea of the greater good and like uniting people, like because they were all just a bunch of kind of disparate, a bit like the story of the mankind story in 40k, right? So they were all kind of disparate and fighting each other and shit, and then some psychic guys show up.
Oh, not psychic.
Bit emperor. Oh yeah,
come
right.
to them.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. The ethereals, they show up and kind of bring them all together, right?
That's right. Okay. Next question. Right. So you've heard of Vespids. We've talked about them before. You've probably heard of Kroot, but there's more on them coming up. But do you guys know what the Nikasar Xenos race provide the Tau with?
Milk.
I want you to think about, I'll give you a clue because it relates to an episode we did not that long ago. Remember the Tau have no psychers.
Psychic powers.
Which enable them to do what?
Warp
travel in the warp.
Ah, well done, Stoney. You were there first on that one.
I didn't think they could travel in the warp. That's cool.
They dive in and out of it. They don't travel in the same way.
Oh, right, like pulse through.
Yeah, they have this race called the Nikasar, which basically build all of their navy and are really, really psychic, but they are hidden from the Imperium. The Imperium doesn't know about these guys.
So are these some more, because obviously they like to get other races in under this greater good banner. Are these some people who they've recruited at some stage, a secret alien dudes?
Yeah, they're this secret race that's still secret from the Imperium. They don't know that they're...
Do they have, is there any drawings of them or anything? I mean, what do these guys look like, these?
I hunted low and high, Stoney, because I thought you might ask that. And all I could find was a reference to Jervis Johnson, one of the original Games Workshop creators, once described them as floating round polar bear type creatures. Now, whether that was a tongue-in-cheek 80s joke, I don't know. But no, there's very little information about these other than they make the Tau interstellar transport.
Okay.
There we are. So we said that there is a little bit communist, these guys. So I want to know what makes the Che Guevara, not the Che Guevara, the Che Guevara, the most hated heretics in the Imperium of Man.
They're the Imperial Guard and the PDF that join the ranks of the greater good.
Straight on it, Matt. Good knowledge. That is the Tau word for men of the human race that have joined the Tau. But it does look just like Che Guevara when you read it. So I think that's a nod towards some joy there. Okay, this one shocked me. I didn't really know this one. How many Terran Standard years has it been from when the Tau invented the wheel and fire to now? In lore
6,000.
times. He has done his homework. 6,000 years. Stony, what's your Tau knowledge? He's gone. He's left. He's
Mine?
Yeah.
What? I mean, I don't know. I think they came up with it. Took them 10 years. They're really quick on it.
Well, it was only 6,000 to get to where they're at now, which is mental. And no one can really explain. Okay. Yeah. No one can really explain how they were recorded first by the Inquisition.
I have something to admit.
Right.
Right now. I did actually.
Army. I knew it. He's got a Tau army. Welshie, I fucking knew it. I see it on the shelf.
I nearly had a Tau army. I bought many years ago. I bought a Tau Codex. I think Jeff, when me and Jeff were at school, Jeff.
Don't try to blame this on our.
I'm blaming it on Jeff.
Don't the ultimate Jeff. Don't bring him into it.
I did buy a Tau Codex, and I remember reading about the 6,000 year thing and the and how their homeworld, the Imperium, found their homeworld and found them like making fire, and the Imperium thought, right, we're going to send a fleet out to destroy this world, and the fleet went to destroy them, and as they went there, a warp storm protected the planet, and then the Imperium forgot they were there. And now they've remembered that they're there and are really surprised that they're invading.
How convenient for Games Workshop. Right. Yeah. Well, the next one's easy, so this is going to be a quick fire question.
I wonder, do you reckon like all the passwords for all their stuff must just be like fire and rock and everything? Yeah. So they've gone from like literally living in a cave to having fucking email in like.
All right, quick fire. The next question, because it's an obvious answer, but if the Tau were to expand their spheres, how many times have they done it?
5.
Well done, Matt. Stealing the show. I think you should be proud of your lack of Tau knowledge, to be honest, Stoney. Yeah, when they expand their empire, they do it spherically through the galaxy, and they kind of wait and they prepare and they do a little expansion, and then they do another one, and that's how they grow the empire. And some of the planets they destroy, and some of the planets they convince to join the greater good. Okay, so I want to know if you could tell me what happened when the Tau started trading with their imperial neighbors for the first time in the Damocles Gulf. What happened? The Tau have expanded. They've met some humans for the first time. There's some friendly trade going on. What happens next?
I don't know. They tried to convince them about the greater good.
Okay. Do you think that went well?
Well, I think that's probably what they did. The Imperium launched a crusade against them.
Well, Matt, you wouldn't be wrong, because what happened was the Administratum noticed this. And worried about the Xenos taint, they leaped into action. And 100 years later, a crusade arrived at the Damocles Gulf. So yeah, that's the kind of the
100 years later,
bureaucracy of the Administratum. And the big fight went down, and they kept fighting for ages. And then the Tyranids arrived, and everyone fought them for a bit, and it kind of dissipated. So that was the first meeting.
This was the thing I mentioned a few episodes ago. That I think I said that it was a worldwide campaign, but that was the 13th Black Crusade. But in like 2003, maybe when the Vetibids came out, Games Workshop, it was actually a weekender where they did it in Warhammer World. You bought a ticket and you went for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was the Damocles Gulf Crusade. And the results of the games all played in Warhammer World were tallied up, and the winner actually impacted the lore. And because it was a new codex or a new revision of the Tau Codex, and Codex Creep is a thing, the Tau won.
Oh, right. Okay.
And the Imperium lost. They sent the Damocles Gulf Crusade was sent into the abyss and was destroyed.
Someone shouted, "We need a retcon. Where are the Tyranids?"
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Last question then. Stoney, you've mentioned a little bit of the elemental views, but I wonder if you can tell me, there's a very rigid class and caste system within the Tau. Can between you tell me the 5 Tau caste names and what their functions are within society? And you've named a couple already, Stoney.
Yeah, well, they're like basically, there's like fire, earth, water, air, and then ethereal.
Oh,
right?
spot
Nice.
on.
Yeah,
1 to
yeah.
5. And do
we
you know
gotta
what they
say
do? Yeah.
Well, fire warriors, they shoot guns.
That's the military
air warrior,
arm.
Yeah. The air warriors have something to do with guns.
Planes, air.
Water warriors, guns. Earth warriors, I'm guessing something to do with guns.
Well, you're not far off with the air, because they also fire guns, but the air caste are the pilots, and most of them live in 0G. So they're really tall and skinny and have hollow bones.
They're like greys.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
look really creepy. The
Yeah.
Earth caste are the scientists and engineers. They're like the tech
They make
priests.
the guns.
Yeah, they're making the guns. And the water castes are the merchants and the diplomats. They're selling the guns.
Guns.
How would we summarize what the ethereals are?
Well, it's a good question, right? Which is why I put this last, because it's worth a discussion, I think, as to what the ethereals are. Lore-wise, they are the people. You're right, Stoney. There was big battles at the start of Tau evolving, and the ethereals basically came to power and started controlling everything. But they're not really psychic. There's some thought that they release some kind of pheromone, some kind of mind-controlling pheromone. But they don't really have, they're not psychic, although they have kind of rules on the table that are similar to the kind of way psychic rules work. But there's various theories. I don't know if anyone else has heard.
But I mean,
ones.
they're kind of the architects of the whole thing, though, aren't they? Like, they showed up and they're like the greater good, and all of that is kind of their idea. And it's no one really knows where we know about like the Tau and the Vespids and all of that, but the ethereals are kind of like no one really knows.
Well, I think they're still Tau, but all of the castes now, one of the things that the ethereals introduced, because they're not just communists, they're massive racists, is that there's no interbreeding allowed between the castes. So they've almost become like subspecies now, the different castes.
What about, can a Tau fuck a Vespid? Or like,
good question.
I think that would be very frowned upon.
Yeah,
there's a civil rights movement coming, I'm sure.
You're right about the ethereals and the caste system. It's almost like they, of course they're happy with the way things are because they're the ones on top, and they're just mind washing everyone into following the system that puts them on top. It's all very suspicious, all a bit fishy.
So it's weird.
Camel fishy.
Oh, we failed.
The ethereals guide us.
Where the Tau are at now, kind of expanding, really kind of getting into Imperial space. Like, where do we think they go from here?
Nowhere. They're exterminated.
Because they're obviously technically evolving faster than any other race. They're on this upward trajectory.
8th edition came out, they had the 5th expansion.
Yeah.
And it got lost in the warp for like, I don't know, 200 years, I think, or something. This is from memory. And it's reappeared on some other bit of the galaxy. Is this not to do with Shadow Sun?
She's involved, yeah. I'll talk a bit more about her in a bit, I think. But
they might have broken away from the Tau or something. They're like, or the 5th expansion, something went wrong with the 5th expansion. Something isn't going right with the Tau Empire, is the implication, I think. From
I think that there has to be some, like every race in 40k is essentially in desperate need or in some kind of desperate struggle, so whatever whatever the, you know, how fluffy the Tau look on the outside, whatever it is, the ethereals are hiding, or whatever's going on, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be something shady and you know, potentially destructive.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
talk of there being like chaos corrupted Tau, and I know people have
Yeah.
made armies of chaos corrupted Tau, but lore wise it doesn't make sense. There's nothing to actually support it in the lore, because they're not warp entities. They aren't connected. When a demon can't really see them, they just see like wisps of cloud rather than like burning fires of souls.
I was going to mention that because I remember there's a YouTube channel called 40k Theories, and they talk about, and I think I watched it maybe a year ago. There was a video on there about Chaos Tau, and they do quote when they find evidence in the books or implications in the books, and definitely there's some sort of implication somewhere in a Black Library source that implies that one of the Tau has been turned into or corrupted by chaos.
Maybe it's the communists were the propaganda masters. Maybe it's just all being
but you know, I mean, again, it's this kind of weird everything in you know, 40k. It's this weird esoteric knowledge to everything, this kind of step up that like you wouldn't know. There's this just secret of a bigger world happening, and it's, you know, like we talked about the fact that these guys were living in caves inventing fire, and then 6,000 years later, boom, they've got fucking mech suits like out of an anime comic. It's like, you know, that suggests that they've been blessed with some kind of outside knowledge from somewhere, whether, you know, that usually in 40k can be the warp or a magic wizard that comes down, or whatever kind of you know, kind of what do they call it, like a plot device that you need to get in. But like there always has to be questions that are unanswered, and they always have to be, you know, so I don't think like there's, even though there's like, we're sort of talking about the Tau like they're an expanding race, but really they've given no sign to be any more expanding than any other race, and they still seem to be like, I think there's a big thing about them about to be eaten by Tyrannids or something like that, isn't it? I mean, we sort of mentioned on it before, but I think that they're branching out because of
they've it's funny when you read these things, isn't it? Because when you look at the galaxy map and you look at how much is Tau, it's tiny. It's like the whole Tau area is like the size of one imperial system.
They've only been at it 6,000 years,
well,
you know, give them a break.
But they still managed to write in that they have a battle with every race so that they can be a picture in the codex. But you're right, the Tyranids have come in more than once. I'm going to mention one of my favourite Tau characters later, but they've definitely had run-ins with the Orcs. It'd be cool if they're being enslaved by like a cool Xenos race the whole time, like the Ethereals are under the control of the enslavers or something like that. From the
it's just a different version of chaos kind of thing that just gives you loads of technology and stuff.
Psychers. I think actually, Stoney, you might have an interesting point because you just said they're portrayed as this expansionist empire, but they're not, and actually you might have a point, because in the lore the Imperium find them 6,000 years later and they have an empire of about 100 worlds, and it doesn't really expand much beyond that in the lore. They kind of get the Imperium, they start to attack the Imperium, so the Imperium discover them and they kind of stop. The Imperium tried to re-invade them and they defeat the invasion, and then there's some border skirmishes, maybe a few planets are lost, but the Tau don't really kind of do much more. Well, so they do kind of stop.
I agree. I mean, I think that like a central theme to like all of 40k is this like technological stagnation, you know. So from a story point of view, they're happy to like, after they've created, you know, we're talking a bit like breaking the fourth wall here for the Tau now, but like after you've made this story, you're happy to just let them stagnate until like, it's only now that the Space Marines are starting to like get their lore pushed beyond everything is from 4,000 years ago or whatever the fuck it was, you know, like there's only 4 tanks in the world and they each get, you know, all of this kind of weird stuff. So like, and start to introduce like new lore. So I think they're perfectly happy to let the Tau be as technological technologically advanced as they are, and without pushing it much further. Like, I think if they were going to start like pushing the range out, like when we spoke before about them maybe including some more alien races into the new range, which has to be on the cards by now. We've talked about that as well, but their model range is definitely due an update. So they must have been thinking about how we're going to redo these guys and keep that cool anime stuff, but also maybe add in a few more different alien races.
They offer Games Workshop quite an interesting plot device, don't they? Where they can have humans that aren't Imperium, and they can have like almost the Star Wars, Star Trek kind of universe within the dark, grimdark. They can do those.
Yeah, you could almost do like a fluffy version of a Gene Stealer cult, like a Tau cult, where they're all like going around, shooting pamphlets and T-shirt cannons and stuff.
That's something that would totally make sense in the lore, because the Gene Stealers can infiltrate like anything that's alive, unless they can't do the Tau because the Tau aren't connected to the warp and they need some kind of shadow in the warp type thing. But there's no lore to suggest Gene Stealers couldn't infect Tau. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. There we go. Maybe that's the crossover we need.
Hello, sir. Do you have a moment to talk about the greater good?
So what is the greater good? Is it like Scientology, where you've got to pay your way to know? Or is it like all the other religions where you've also got to pay your way to actually get there? Who could say? Let's find out right now as we discuss what is the greater good. There's always got to be some kind of eldritch secret with Warhammer 40k guys. And this greater good, quote unquote, I know it's got good in the title, could be any number of shifty style things, from chaos to other Xenos races, or all sorts of crazy shit. So what's your take on all of this?
It's communism.
Okay. So I guess it's kind of like space communism, which to me always sounds a bit
how is that
Dutch.
any different from
really...
like being obviously the Imperium, they want you to work towards the Imperium, but that essentially equates to the same thing, really, doesn't it? I guess.
Yeah.
You're still just like working for some sort of regime, working towards something that isn't like making
agree.
Jim Bob, or whoever your name happens to be, Jim Bob living on Alfarius 2. It's about him. He wants to get into playing the guitar, but where's it written? Where's that written in the greater good or the Imperium doctrine?
It's just to give the ethereal cast a harem, and essentially to safeguard the harem and to make themselves richer. I think there's no other. I don't know. What's how women like?
There's only one Shadow Sun, who we'll discuss a little
bit later. There's only one woman.
There's only one.
God.
In the lore, and I believe there's some tech priest caught one and described her at some point.
Oh, right.
Probably lifted up a skirt with his little mechadendrites.
He did some pictures on DeviantArt.
Yeah.
They tell everyone that what they're doing helps everyone else, and they should all be part of the system.
But there must be that's what it is on paper, sure.
Okay, so the Imperial Armor 3 book that I've got, where they've written a campaign where this world start to trade with the Tau Empire, because I can't remember the exact details, but say this world has got loads of coal on it. The Tau, they just start trading with the planet to buy all the coal, and the Tau essentially start paying more money or more resources than the Imperial tithe does. So the governor of the planet just starts feeding all the resources of the world into the Tau, and the Tau are like, this is good for you because you're earning more money, and it's good for us because we're getting the resources we need, and we can protect you because you, if you're gonna do good for us, we'll do good for you.
Hey,
and
you know what? Everybody knows we love the Tau here on the Large Blast podcast. So you know what? I'm going to say I think the Tau greater good is just good times and happy times for everybody out there. So if you're not a Tau player right now, go out there, buy a bunch of Tau. Get it in, buy it, join the greater good. All right, cool. So welcome to this part of the show, Model Spotlight, where we shine a spotlight directly onto some cool models that have come out recently this week. And, this time we've got some very cool models indeed. They're free from the new Necromunda gang, the Water Guild, who I believe are a bunch of people obsessed with water, going around finding water, collecting water, precious water. Everyone loves it, and these guys are all about it. And yeah, so we've got 3 models. We've got one big bruiser guy in a big kind of deep diving suit, 40k style, and 2 more of your sort of standard spindly sort of Necromunda guys. What do you think?
I think these are some of the coolest models that I've seen in a long time. They're completely unique. I'm not sure about the Subnauticon, the big diving bruiser, but the other 2 are so 40k art with weird triangle heads and divining rods and bits of random spindly machinery coming out of them. Yeah.
Well, they've definitely got that kind of weird underwater feel to them. That, like, one of them's got a kind of a sort of a stingray shaped helmet type thing, which is really cool. I get what you mean about this Subnautica, this deep sea diver guy, and I sort of see where you're coming from. On his own, I would agree with you. I don't like him, but I like him with the other 2 models as kind of like so it's kind of like the bruiser with these 2 sort of scientist models, and he's there to, like, pick up heavy rocks and wrestle starfish or whatever the fuck they do, So I quite like him as part of the set, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Maybe the weakest of the 3, definitely the least original of the 3.
Actually, until now, I've only seen the big guy, the Subnauticon, and I saw that. I think I had an email a few days ago, and I saw that and just thought, it's not really 40k. And I kept looking at it and looking at it and looking at it, and then I haven't looked at it since. And since you, Stoney, have described it as a like a deep sea diver, that's kind of changed my opinion a little bit on it. I think you're right to describe it as a kind of deep sea diver. Obviously, there's a nautical theme with all of these figures, but I think looking at it from that point of view, rather than what I was seeing him as, which is some sort of astronaut, I think he is kind of cool. I don't know what's behind the armor, but the two little guys who until now I have not seen, they're really amazing models. The Symphonet, I am not so sure of, but the Master Nautician, he's pretty cool. His pose and hat is like a ethereal. It's like a Tau ethereal.
He's doing tented hands, so he's up to no good.
Yeah,
arch hands, yeah. But what's the law, guys? They cruise around trying to they provide water to the hives, so basically, they basically go around.
Oh, right.
Yeah, this is in Necromunda, and they are in charge of all of the water supply in Necromunda. So they're some of the most powerful people because there is no fresh water.
This is great.
So they hold water against people in the underhive, and they basically hire the gangs to protect their various water filtration assets. And the Subnauticon is in that suit because he literally dives to fix pipes. It's a proper diving bell.
Is it like an Ogrin?
I think it's just a big dude in a diving bell suit.
Right.
But it said in the lore when they released this online, the Siphonite are really weird and no one really knows what they are, but there's tales of them being able to like suck the water out of people. So whether they're some form of cypher or something, but they desiccated bodies have been appearing from places.
Takes them out like a Calippo.
Yes, rolled up from the bottom.
I mean, that's what you've got in a hive city. You've got billions of humans full of water, a sack of water, like a water balloon. That lore is really cool. For me.
I mean, it's funny.
A gang like fighting over resources. They're actually fighting over water, which is like the most important resource. That's brilliant.
And I think that it is a key to the fact that these are good models, that I didn't really know any of that lore, and I kind of already had picked some of that up off of just that, like the Siphonite's got a weird mouth thing that could definitely suck things out, and like the Subnauticon, obviously we talked about deep sea diver. So yeah, I think there's some quality builds there.
Yeah, spot on. I'm definitely getting these. They're just too cool not to.
Are they not going to be in a larger gang, or are they just going to be
No, these guys aren't really a gang. They're like lords of the hive. They're quite high up.
Right.
These guys employ the gangs to look after their assets.
Oh, cool.
So they're kind of
Yeah.
special characters for sort of special
I
scenarios.
think so,
and
yeah.
things.
But maybe they'll bring out a whole kind of bodyguards or something.
Are they Forge World models?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether they're resin or
right.
plastic, I'm not sure. Because I think all of the Forge World special characters have
Still
been
resin,
Yeah.
So now cue the blast from the past music. Are we going in the future?
The 70s, the 80s,
Yeah.
classic.
The 70s.
The 80s. The 90s.
Ooh, we're going back in time.
Is that a space squad?
It's time we take you back with a blast from the past.
So the Tau have a number of races under their wing in their empire, and blast back to 2005, and the Kroot, which were a race in the empire at that point. They had a plastic models in Games Workshop, but they really got fleshed out in 2005 by Forge World. So to coincide with the episode, I wanted to do my blast from the past to refresh our memory banks on the Kroot range brought out by Forge World. Really, to look at this, we should probably just refresh ourselves about the Kroot. Who are the Kroot and what are they? Because they're quite interesting looking Xenos for 40k. They're quite different to everything else in 40k.
They're a bit like the Predator and a frog had a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
That's quite good. Yeah. Well, they're a savage mercenary Xenos species. They're native to the world of Peck. That's the name of their home world, which I thought was quite funny. Peck.
They've got beaks.
Down Peckham.
From
Birmingham again.
But they do have beaks. But Peck is a world filled with evergreen forests, and it's populated by a jagger tree, which is a massive tree, and it covers continents of forests. And then there's inhospitable rock ranges, so it's kind of very green and very desert, which is quite Tau, I think.
Like Avatar again.
Yeah. The Kroot themselves, they stand. So the Tau are smaller than a human, but the Kroot are larger than a human. They're about 1.5 feet taller than most humans, and they do have avian ancestry. So they're from a world called Peck, and they have a beak, and they have long quills, and they have this. There's stuff in their body that is almost like they used to be feathers. So they're kind of. They're all like bird. They're birdmen. It's a birdman essentially.
But Sonic the Hedgehog spike beaked face
birdman
with a cloaca.
Do they have a cloaca? Do they have multiple holes or a single hole?
Well,
are they monotremes?
No, they don't.
I'm checking out this loincloth that you've got up here right now, and I'm saying cloaca.
They don't poo or wee. They only regurgitate a small amount of waste from their mouth, which is really weird. So they're very efficient at using all of their sustenance for energy. So they don't poo or wee. I don't know if that means they have any holes or what. I don't know. But
that's my new adult fan fiction idea out the window.
Yeah, what, like a Kroot threesome?
Yeah, with underneath the Mick Jagger tree.
They have the weird thing about the Kroot is that they have an ability to undergo genetic evolution by eating flesh. So the big thing about the Kroot is that they eat flesh. So but there's a reason behind that. They actually absorb traits from the species that they eat, and they absorb it very quickly. It's like hyper evolution. It happens very fast, but it isn't an exact science, and the Kroot can sometimes mutate in evolutionary dead ends which is why if you look at the Forge World range, which we'll get onto in a moment, they have like mounts, so big, burly, lumbering animals that they use to sit on, like we use a horse, that look very similar to a Kroot. And I always wondered, why do they look like a Kroot? We don't look like a horse. But the reason is because
that's a fair point, Matt.
Yeah, we some people look like a horse. They're called horse people, but we are not horse people. And,
Centaurs. Do you mean?
No, I mean,
So
you get like horse girls.
Oh yeah.
So what you're trying to say these are some Kroot that have eaten some bad pussy and they've come out the other side looking like a gorilla or whatever.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So the Kroot eat their enemies, and they eat well anyone, and they eat their dead as well. It's like a religious belief that it's ingrained in their society that when they are a warrior race, when anyone of a warrior race dies, for their spirit to be kept, the only way is to do this is to eat the flesh. But it's also because they can evolve the trait of their enemies by eating the flesh. So they live in clans, and their leader of a clan is called a shaper, and a Kroot shaper shapes the evolutionary traits of their clan. So the Kroot shaper will tell them, don't eat that enemy, eat that enemy, because you learn the trait from him. So we want
to be a bit more birdy. Let's eat some birds. Let's stay off the snails. Everyone's getting a bit sluggish. Let's grab a couple of whatever.
Yeah, or be a bit more burly and eat an orc.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I'll just check the rules, because I'm pretty sure that there's a rule with that, and there is. The shaper commands is one of the actual rules on tabletop.
Oh, cool.
Which is that they re-roll wounds of 1 if they're within 6 inches of a shaper, which is like a sergeant.
What, on an armor save or something?
Yeah.
Okay. And
they also use the shaper's leadership. So
cool.
Kind of standard rules, but it's nice that it's got that theme.
They should use the leadership of whatever enemy they killed last.
Yeah. So the kind of the world is full of evolutionary dead end animals where they are part Kroot and part animal, which is why they have these what's the word for like horses and cows? But they have a word
bovine.
No, they're like lumbering animals. I can't remember, but these animals that they use for work look like them, and they look similar to them because they share DNA. The interesting thing that I read about was where I just mentioned about orcs. The Kroot are very primitive, but they are so they live in like a pre-industrial society, incapable of achieving flight, let alone space. But the Tau have observed on Peck, the homeworld, that there's evidence that there's a hidden industrial base that the Kroot are hiding from the Tau, and it's the insinuation is that it's because the Kroot have been eating orcs that they have learned the orcs' innate ability to construct technology despite a lack of knowledge for constructing technology. So the orcs can just they just haven't
they just like
build
tape stuff together and it works.
So they think that the Kroot are benefiting from that ability, which is interesting. But the Tau Empire came into contact with the Kroot when the orcs were invading Peck, the homeworld. So the orcs were mid-invasion of the homeworld, and the Kroot were kind of beating them. But then the Tau decided to essentially come in and save them. And not much is known since then. But again, the insinuation is that the Kroot, rather than willingly join the Tau, have been made to join the Tau Empire. And they are used as cannon fodder for the Tau Empire.
Well, that is certainly how I've ever seen them used on a battlefield, is put in front of a bunch of stuff you don't want to get shot straight away because it's just a nice, bit of bubble wrap. So there's probably something to be said for that. I don't know how psyched I'd be about being a part of the Tau army when all they do is stick you in front of their expensive items.
Yeah. But there's a book called The Blade of Damocles, the Blade of Damocles book, where the Astartes they raid a base, and they find loads of Kroot attacking them, but the Kroot are essentially servitors, and the Astartes start to kill the Kroot, and there's they have robot brains inside them, where they are Kroot bodies, but they've got Tau computers in their minds, and it's almost the book
like
is
a
almost
Stepford's Wives type thing.
What's
that thing where what's that film, that old film where at the end it turns out all their wives were robots after all?
I was thinking about Austin Powers. But...
Oh no, yeah, more that sort of.
The Kroot's breastplate opens to reveal 2 miniguns.
But the book almost implies that the Tau are using these Kroot as live target practice. They put like computers in their brains, so they act like targets, and then the Tau come to train on them.
That's not surprising, because we've said that the pheromone control of the ethereals possibly over all Tau, and then also I was reading that the funny helmets that the Vespid Stingwings wear are thought to be mind control as well. So maybe none of these people are joining up out of their own steam.
Yeah. So anyway, the Forge World models are pretty cool, and they have these big Hurley mounts, the Narlock and the Great Narlock. They're almost, they are very avian, I guess, but they are like dinosaurs, some of them. And I remember just the model range coming out, and I just thought it was quite good at the time in 2005, when Games Workshop didn't really shine a lot of light into these hidden corners of the 40k universe. That Forge World were making these random Xenos models, which is pretty cool, and they all came out in and part of Imperial Armor 3, which is a book which came out, which included their unit entries, so you could use them as an army in 40k. And I'm pretty sure you could have a complete Kroot army, so you didn't have to play Tau. You could play these weird half-naked bird aliens, which it was just quite interesting, and the models are quite cool. So they have they essentially run around on giant dinosaurs. Have you seen any of these models before?
I've seen them
on the website.
I've never seen anyone have one of these in real life.
No.
I think that. Go on.
The one that you get from Games Workshop that looks a bit like a gorilla that you're stood on the back of, rather than the Forge World. What is that called?
I think that looks like a Narlock. I think.
And the ones that are dinosaurs are the Great Narlocks. Yeah.
Well, incidentally, this range from Forge World, no idea when it was dropped, but you can't buy it now. So
really?
It's not on the website. God knows when it left. But sorry, Sony.
No, well, I was just thinking, it's just like we say, it's hard to see somebody envisaging someone in today, 2001, wanting to be like, I want to make an entire Kroot army. So it is a bit unusual that these models are for sale, but who knows?
I just wanted to mention the models. It's almost like I haven't really got much else to say about the models, but rereading the book, the Imperial Armor 3 book, the book is really cool. I mentioned it the other day. It's about an Imperial world that slowly turns to Tau and then is invaded by the Tau and then the Imperium. But but I flicked through it the other day, and it's actually the author had made up the campaign in the 80s, albeit with Eldar rather than Tau, and with his friends when they were at college, and then he rewrote this book with this campaign in from a campaign that him and his friends had done in the 80s. The book has rules for the human auxiliaries in, so you can use Imperial Guard models with painted in the yellow Firecast, and you can use them in a Tau army in the book. But also it has a campaign in the book where you can play, and it has rules in for Battlefleet Gothic, so you and 40k and Epic for the Tau, so you can. Yeah. And the campaign goes from space to 40k. It's really cool.
I years ago I heard about some people that were playing that. So it was like you had free games going. It was Zone Mortalis, the space fighting game. What's that called? The spaceships one. Battlefleet Gothic, and an Epic game going all at the same time.
Yeah,
and each one, and at the beginning of each turn, what had happened in the last turn on the other person's board would affect something that happened on the other boards. It was crazy.
That's got to be the future in 5 years' time, isn't it? We talk about Battlefleet Gothic coming back. They're going to do that. It's going to be amazing. It's happening.
Well, there you go. More what some people, cynical people, would describe as lame Tau lore, but those guys are dickheads, because this is the Tau episode where we fucking love Tau. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of these fucking big boys, these bad boys of the Tau Empire, which I think, Welshie, you want to kick us off with a little bit here.
Yeah, so I had to rack my brains, and I have to admit that I'm probably a step further than Matt in that I have played an entire edition with a Tau army. However, my Tau army are orcs who have looted all of the guns. He tried
to describe. I was thinking about this only today whilst we were doing that. I was thinking, what about your Tau army? And when we met to play, I literally thought I was going to play an orc army, and boom, turned out to be Tau after all.
So what I did in 7th edition was I realised that orcs were shit and Tau were great, but Tau looked like shit and are boring. So I cut all of the guns off of Tau and I converted an entire orc army, so they look like orcs but they play as Tau.
Your orc army is amazing, to be honest. The Tau orcs were something very special.
I haven't seen it done since, to be honest, so I'm quite happy.
They were very cool. There was all kind of lights in them, all sorts of stuff. It was badass.
Yeah, I'll post a picture on the grab if you're listening.
Oh yeah, you got to get it on the LBP.
It was an Armies on Parade board as well, so I love them. I kind of know how Tau play on the board, but I can't get excited about the Tau. That's why I chopped them up. So I was racking my brains. This is our positive, greater good Tau episode, and I was looking for people that I could get behind potentially. And there's one guy that I can really get behind in the Tau Codex, and that's Commander Farsight. He is in a battle suit. His other name, and I've had to write this down, right? His real Tau name is Shasso Viola Shova Cleus Montjar. That is the name of Commander Farsight.
Sounds like a fancy bottle of wine.
Yeah. And he's the bane of the Greenskins. He was sent out to fight a big orc incursion, and he was trained under Commander Puretide, who's one of he is the Tau mythical hero, and he was trained by him, so he's got a great sensei, but he basically goes out to reclaim worlds and doesn't stop, and the ethereals try and rein him in, and he's like, no, and they're like, dude, do you not know we're Tau? We're supposed to stay 72 inches away and fire really big guns. And he's like, no, I'm not having any of that. I've got me a badass sword. So he's kind
of the Khan the Betrayer of...
He is. And he's red as well.
And he's red, yeah.
So he leads his special pack of bodyguards called the Eight. And his own, the planet he's from has higher gravity than the other Tau planets. So all of his fire cast are actually stronger than humans because they're used to higher gravity. So if you ever try and play close combat with Tau and you don't want to just lose 100 crew, Farsight is your really only real go-to in a close combat fight. And he's got this bodyguard team of specialist body crisis suits. So a lot of the Tau have got these funny battle suits that they're in, but he's got a kind of souped up set of battle suit dudes that hang out with him. And he's basically made this area called the Farsight enclaves that don't really bow down to traditional Tau lore, and the Ethereals have kind of shunned him. And he's the only really Tau to have kind of broken away. But there's a really cool bit of lore in that his sword is called the Dawn Blade, and he found it on a planet. He ripped it from a broken statue and used it to kill a bloodthirster in one sweep. And it's older than the Imperium of Man. So he's got this ancient sword, and he is now 300 years old, which is too old for a Tau. So there's these thoughts that his blade is tainted by some kind of chaos, and that it sucks the life force out of people he kills and gives it to him. So there's something weird going on with him. I wonder if you guys think he's cool.
I mean, I know that the Imperium would always never, they would frown upon using Tau technology, but would Tau ever use like Eldar technology or something like that if they found it and would be able to use it?
Maybe. I don't think there's much run-in between the Tau and Eldar in the lore. I think.
No, I mean, is it just assume that they have the best guns, so they wouldn't why bother picking up a bolter? Why eat hamburger when you've got steak at home or whatever they say?
Yeah.
The only well, I don't know. The only thing the Tau could use from the Imperium could be the warp drive and the maybe even the navigators. The Tau. They obviously don't have full warp traveling capacity, so that's something they could do with.
Well, that certainly hinders their expansion. They can't actually travel very fast. Far.
There were when was it? Quite recently, there were rules for the 8. Was it in a rule book or was it in White Dwarf? I can't remember, but yeah, you can play, and it's like 1,500 points, but they seem pretty badass.
So my Tau army has essentially a kind of souped up battlesuit group that's a bit like the 8, but I don't have Farsight because, like I say, they're all orcs. But he just seemed like the only kind of Tau character I could get behind as a kind of figure, because the alternative, the only named other character, is Shazara, also known as Shadow Sun, who's got 2 ridiculous fusion blasters, they're called, but they're essentially multi-melters. And she's a super stealthy, hard to hit, deep striking, multi-melter bomb character. And I thought that was cool because it plays on the tabletop, and I've got an orc version of her. But then I looked up her lore, and she is dull. She's more dull than any other Tau, and I'm trying to be positive, I'm sorry. But they literally freeze her in between. Sorry.
Can you bleep those dulls, Matt, when you're doing the editing on this one? You need to bleep out those dulls. This is the positive Tau episode.
All right, let me try and rephrase it. She's really, really cool because, unlike being 300 years old, possibly possessed by a demon blade, she gets frozen every 100 years while they wait for the next sphere expansion, and then they thaw her out to put her into practice. What a cool gimmick, guys.
Oh man, I've got to be honest with you. This model is fucking gubbins as well. We've talked a little bit about like stuff being perched on scenery, but this thing is just like, what's going on with that bit of scenery under? Like, where's she perched up? I don't know. That's just really bad angle. Put her on the base for fuck's sake, or standing on something. It's weird.
I agree. This is the one model, Stoney, that Tau have got in the past 10 years. She was the revamped model when they revamped like one model per army, and I think it's crap as well.
Yeah.
Well, for positive reasons, guys, I'm gonna say she looks uniquely interesting.
I think she's acceptable.
It is definitely a model.
Well, gentlemen, while we're on Shadow Sun, I wanted to mention that she might be the only female Tau that's mentioned in any of the Tau lore. And that has led to not quite a world of 40,000 dicks fan-made erotic fiction, but a world which we won't put on our YouTube video, but just Google some Commander Shadow Sun nude, get some up on your screen. Have a look and just listen to the reaction of the gentlemen now as I show them some of my favourite selection, and maybe they can describe some Commander Shadow Sun.
Oh, I'm excited.
Pictures.
Got my trousers down in anticipation.
Here we go.
Boy.
This one in particular is my
Really?
favourite.
People have done this.
Man.
This is
I would like you
amazing.
to try and describe what is going on in this picture.
Okay. Stoney, do you want
Right,
to
cool.
take it away?
Well, it looks like we've got a Tyranid Xenanthrope, and he's just come into them. I've got an ad. There's an ad over the main event at the moment, but the Xenanthrope has come
the
in.
advert is.
The Xenanthrope has come in to see Shadow Sun. Looks like farting a bunch of jizz out, whilst also maybe having a period in a bent over position.
Oh.
It is. It's quite fantastic. I'm assuming this is an early Picasso or something like that, or a Banksy or somebody. Either way, hopefully this will go into the Tate Modern where it belongs, and this person isn't living in their mum's basement, but is a massive mansion out wherever they desire.
Just a point on the possible period blood there, Stoney. With my knowledge of Tyranid lore and the fact that the zoanthropes are a particularly psychic thing, I think there might be some kind of psychic stimulation going on.
Oh, you think that this might be some kind of red thing going in than red thing coming out? Okay. Well, you guys can Google that and make sure you email into us to let us know what you think is going in or coming out of Shadow Sun's vagina.
Do you want to do another? Do you want to do one, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see what I can find you, because there's quite a lot out there, guys. If you're into this kind of thing,
I mean, this is just having this. What is that octopus thing? Oh my god!
Wait. Second
Go
from
up, go up.
Top right, second from the right.
Not the one with the
Right,
dick.
that one, the one
No,
with the massive vein.
no, top left. Oh my god! There's top left. Has it got tentacles? It's proper weird. I can't believe people do this. There's been there's
some
a
of these
few
look
with
like
the
they've taken a fair bit of time to manufacture.
There's a few with like there's a few with the dragon dildo. You know that thing. Yeah, that seems to be very popular online at the moment.
all right. Well, I think before
like the
you guys
3D
get a little
printing
bit
group.
too stimulated and join the Tau, we'll close the Shadow Sun hentai. But if
Yeah.
you're interested, it's a whole new world. That's for sure.
I can't believe people do this. I cannot believe people do this.
So taking it back to reality, in the words of Eminem, Stoney, you were going to tell us about some of the model developments involved in the Tau range.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've not really been talking, I mean, obviously we love the Tau here at the Large Blast podcast, but, we've not really talked about the kind of elephant in the room, which is that some people out there feel that like the Tau are a bit of the kind of a sort of an odd fish, if you like, inside of the 40k universe, a sort of a weird army that don't necessarily fit in the same way that like the Space Marines and stuff do. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of its model development and sort of how they came into existence. They're originally a concept, a brainchild of our old friend Gav Thorpe back in the 90s, where he had thought of them as being a fantasy counterpart to the Lizardmen faction for Warhammer Fantasy. So he basically had this idea for these kind of like good guy communist type fellas called the Senshell, who were just going to be the kind of the counterpart to the Lizardmen, a bit like dwarves and elves and all of that. And the idea got put on the shelf and wasn't really thought about until a lot later on, when in 1999, when he was asked to think of a new thing for 40k, a new army for 40k. Basically, they needed some new. Games Workshop check their pockets. The coppers were running a bit dry, so they hit up our old buddy Gav and like, work your magic on a new fucking army for us. So he dusted off this idea of these Senshens, or whatever they were called. I'll spell it out for you, because so you don't have to deal with my dyslexic trying to spell it. Sishell, Seychelles. So they were supposed to be this kind of ethereal counterpart, which is where the term ethereal came from in the first place. So they got shelved until he was re-asked to get back in there. And it wasn't basically most of when he relaunched the idea, he was looking back at the kind of the classic, pretty much all of the armies from 40k or fantasy have some connection to kind of Tolkien-esque fantasy. And this was the first army that was designed that just had nothing to do with that, and that was a Jess Goodwin idea. Well, I'm sure you've heard of him. He's one of the model designers over there at Games Workshop, and he was like, "Fuck that! I've been watching a load of Akira and shit. Let's see what we can do. Like, try to make it a bit more feudal Japan-y." And when you think about the time as well, it was like everyone had just, this was the Tau came out in 2001. So it's like people were just starting to get, like, your friends had mobile phones, but technology was moving a lot quicker as well. When you look at kind of how media was, like special effects were just kind of being a regular feature in films. We weren't at like Transformers type stage yet, but there was kind of Lord of the Rings and things like that happening, mobile phones, but you look at like the way media changed, our idea of the future kind of changed in that time. It became like a sleeker future. This is obviously inspired by like old kind of manga and stuff, by like stuff like Gundam and Neo Geo, stuff like that. I mean, which is stuff which I don't really know a whole lot about, but I have watched a little bit here and there as kid and stuff. And like, but one of the, even not knowing much about it, and I think that I know you guys don't watch anime or anything either, but like just how striking that art style is, those clean edges, and a lot of that stuff like Gundam and things like that. Those came out in like the early 80s, and that kind of art style is still kind of timeless. And you could look at some of that today and still be like, right, that is a new robotic from the future. It's not this kind of, it doesn't have any sort of retro-y style feel like the sort of older designs might do. So like they just wanted to bring in some of that element, and I think that for doing that, they've kind of nailed it. These big fucking mech suits stomping about with like a little dude inside, a sort of a fragile little dude inside a big mech suit, which is what essentially they've gone for here.
Oh, absolutely. It is Games Workshop version of Gundam. Yeah, it is like, oh, why haven't we, or why haven't you got robots like that in your universe? Oh, we have, but they're not human, they're Tau.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I found it like, because I was kind of interested to see, obviously 2001 was a long time ago now, and I was kind of interested to try to see what people's reactions were to it at the time when it came out, because I wasn't into Warhammer at the time. So I found it really difficult to find any information, but I managed to find one archived message board where people
2001
from 2001 with people talking. Yeah, and people were, it was very, very mixed opinions. Like, it was either people like really excited about it, and they were people that were who were into anime previously and came over to Games Workshop, or previous existing Games Workshop fans that were not happy about it. They had some pretty choice words. Somebody here describes it as design-based trolling. Somebody else said that this is they needed an optimistic race to line the wallets, to line their wallets with money. Just lots and lots of just not fans of it at all, really. Well, either it was a very Marmite thing when it came out, basically, and like and one of the things was with the lore that Gav Thorpe had initially written was very optimistic, and like, these guys didn't have this like sort of this dark, more sinister side to them. It was like they were supposed to be the kind of good guys in the Warhammer 40k lore, and they had to scrap all of that shit. They were like, no, it's just not 40k enough. We've got to make increasingly since their release, this kind of shady secret has been played up more and more to try to like make them fit in. Where this range goes in the future, we've talked about it a lot on this show, because we love the Tau, we can always talk about them, but but we're going to be interested to see where the range go, but where they come from is also just as interesting, I think.
But that's quite an interesting point, though, because we have spoken about it many times, but not for a long while. This question of is the grimdark losing its grim darkness, And actually, it's interesting to see those viewpoints. The viewpoints that you just said from 2001, from 20 years ago.
20
you could
years
probably copy and paste, and you could probably read the same thing right now about the same army. But the interesting thing is that you said about how Gav originally wanted to have a quite a positive army, positive race, and that over 20 years it's been crushed by the 40k universe into this no, the grim darkness will prevail. The grim darkness is the thing that is 40k, and has just crushed the positivity out of the race.
I like to think that there's plenty of chill racers just getting on with it in 40k, but you just never hear about them because there's no need to make them. They're just like chilling on a planet, just watching other planets explode and stuff. Just like, fuck me, man. Shit's gone crazy out there.
I thought it was interesting you're saying that the Marmite, the good side of that response being people coming over from anime worlds and manga worlds and Gundam worlds. Because I'd always kind of wondered, Games Workshop has forever been trying to expand into that Japanese market. We saw it with the Space Marine Heroes range a few years ago, which was released only in Japan. You know, I was in Japan at the time and went and bought some from Games Workshop there. And it was staffed by a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Swedish man who worked in Tokyo Games Workshop, right, trying to push this out there. And if anyone happens to be listening in Japan, I'd love to know your thoughts as to whether this culturally has a much bigger kind of resonance or not.
I mean, it's funny because I think that this kind of more anime thing was not necessarily the direction that the range was initially supposed to go in. It was a more kind of feudal Japan-y, you know, like they've got those kind of sort of rice pick hat things sort of design going on some people and things like that. And then this kind of came out of that. Became a sort of a logical conclusion to that, these big suits and everything. But I'm not sure if this was their straight, you know, it became something where it was like, right, this will be a good way to bring in Gundam people and things like that.
You just mentioned feudal Japan, and so what is this? So on the screen we've got the supremacy armor, the Tanar, the KX-139 Tanar. The artwork, not necessarily the model, but the artwork, I see a lot of indirect references to like samurai armor.
Yeah.
I can't really explain it, but it's there, isn't it?
So I think the samurai look, what might make it jump, and I think you can see it with the White Scars range as well, it's the white and red. It's the red on white background. It's the Japanese flag. I mean, it's that feudal look. I think sharpness.
It's kind of and that kind of shoulder pad and the sort of the knee pads and things. But one of the things that they had was you know, this kind of how samurais are like they love their sword kind of thing. A big part of their initial lore was they were going to be like that with their gun, where they had like one gun and they loved it and like all of this kind of thing, and that was kind of like their sword. And you know, so it was kind of like they dedicated their life to the gun, hence why they were so fucking garbage in close combat, you know, that sort of thing. There were these sort of lore sort of crossovers with this sort of feudal Japan-y style idea of like this, you know, the noble samurai who spends his whole life, you know, disciplining in the gun or whatever. And then eventually graduates into a big fuck off mech suit. So who could say?
I mean, I remember getting it from about 2001, 2002, getting Games Workshop vouchers for my birthday, and back before the internet was really big. And you used to always get the paper voucher, and it used to come in an envelope or a card. It used to come in a card from Games Workshop.
Yeah.
And I'd get them for my birthday from people, and they'd, for like 2 years, they were always just a Tau card. And at the time, I was just playing Warhammer. So I used to see this brightly coloured, it was like a battle scene with some of the battle suits, probably the broadside battle suits, firing these like bright blue guns in their bright yellow suits of armor. And I just used to look at them and be like, this
This
does
looks
not
great. This
interest
looks
me.
great. We've tried our best to stay positive about the lore and the models and what we think, but putting aside the fact we're not we might not be massive fans.
Everybody knows the Tau range is fantastic and brilliant, but some cynics out there, some bastards out there, are out here being like, "Oh, the model range needs an upgrade. Oh, it looks gash." Fuck those guys. Let's have a chat about some of these models. So I'm going to kick things off. I'm going to talk about the no-armed, many-missiled Storm Surge, the KV-128 Storm Surge. Because I actually quite like this. Well, I know we love all the models on the Tau range here, but I actually quite like this model better than all the others. I think this is cool. I think that we've talked about the anime reference and stuff like that, and this to me is like proper anime. Like, he doesn't even have arms, he has guns. I like the functionality of it. They're like, fuck the arms off, stick some fucking guns on, plus a big kind of ghetto blaster gun sticking out from his shoulder as well. I don't know. I like this model. I know that there's some cynics out there that wouldn't like it, but I'm into.
I think it's the most Tau model. I agree. It's also massive. It's like the size of a knight.
Yeah.
It's an imposing piece. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Tau should have. Yeah, Tau should have more knight-sized, big fucking mech. I like the mech suit side of things.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good suit, and I think the other good suit is also on our screen now. It's the Ghost Kill battle suit.
The Ghost Kill is cool.
It's their stealthy big mech suit that kind of is in their infiltration cadre, and you can kind of see that with got lots of antennae and shield drones and things floating around it. Guys, I'd like to flag the model in most need of a revamp in the Tau range, and that is the Hammerhead gunship, which hasn't changed in forever. And I just
20 years.
think it sucks. And I've put one together and the quality sucks. And it really, to me, just shows its age. If it's supposed to be a kind of sleek ship, it's got nothing on some of the Eldar flyers that are as old. I just don't get it. It looks like a Fisher-Price toy and not a Warhammer model. Yeah. Oh shit! We're supposed to be saying good things.
Yeah, no,
you say it's really lasted well for 20 years. It's 20 years old. Yeah. Can you believe it's that old?
Well, I've got to disagree with you there, Welshie, and say that I do love this model, but even though that I do, there are also things about it that are fucking garbage. In fact, most of it is garbage. The box it comes in is good. That's the good bit. But this model is trash. It's flimsy. It feels like this doesn't feel like. How much does it cost? It's 37 quid, right? We're looking at the Games Workshop from here. When this arrives and you get the plastic for this kit, it feels flimsy. It's like you say, it's badly put together. It's a bad kit. This should be like 20 quid tops these days.
So let's talk about the basic unit, the basic box of Fire Warriors then, and how we think they've held up.
I think these are the original kit. The thing that made me buy I think it was the 4th edition Tau Codex off eBay was I was playing a game against Jeff and he had 2 units of these Fire Warriors and they just shot me off the board, my Imperial Guard. And I compared my Imperial Guard models to these guys, and the models they looked quite cool. They were I don't know. The scale was better proportional. I don't know.
When they came out, they were very striking and different. I even remember not being into Games Workshop. I've said this a couple of times, but I used to walk past Games Workshop on my way home from work all the time, and not being into Games Workshop, walk past one day, bam. These guys were in the window with a bunch of other stuff. I'd never seen them before. I was like, shit, that's something different, And they're very alien to Games Workshop. They've got that feudal Japan feel going on. Bizarre. I'm a little bit disappointed to find out that Ultimate Jeff was a Tau player. They might have had a reboot. They've been they've had a sprinkling of updates over the years, the Tau, I think.
I think that is a good summary to explain the range. A sprinkling of updates over 20 years. No, because
they came out they came out pre-metal models, didn't they? Like they've been entirely plastic range. Like there's never been a metal Tau model, right?
Basic infantry, no, they were always plastic.
I think some of the character ones that are now fine cast might have been.
They were metal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
the characters were metal. Like the original Vespids were metal.
I think another unit that just needs a rework when you compare them to
they
anything.
look terrible. I mean, they look great.
We just love them here. We love these Kroot hounds here on the Large Blast podcast. These fucking ugly, spindly, looks like you made first go out of Milliput. You could make one of these awesome, wicked Tau models, which we love 100% here on the.
How many did you get for £15?
Four
fucking these garbage. That is fucking that is bargain. That is a bargain.
£3.60 each, £3.63, £3.62, 50 each.
Oh, Games Workshop, you are having a laugh with this quality product.
Well, yeah, I think that sums it up, really, doesn't it? God. I look at these and I think of the fur cats and the really cool things that have come out that are beastly, the new corn hounds, and just think, well, firstly, how much better models are these days, but even at the time, these were not strong.
These Kroot hounds look like, you know, when you see those adverts that come on TV where they're like, this puppy was left in a fucking ditch and then he was like, he had no hair. Like, this looks like the before pictures of that puppy, but like just badly made by a child. I mean, fuck it. It's trash. It's trash.
We failed again. Right, last model then that we need to talk about because, well, mainly just because it bloody exists. Matt, I know you love it. Well, I don't know if you love it. You just demanded we discussed it today.
Yeah. So I have picked, again, another Forge World model, the Tau Empire Manta, the Manta Ray super heavy dropship. And I picked it because when you look at the Tau Empire range, the entire Tau range is essentially trying to come up, that Games Workshop are trying to come up with an in-game model answer to an Imperial unit. So the giant mech suit Storm Surge is essentially a Tau version of an Imperial Knight. Whereas the Manta, there isn't, in the lore, there is an equivalent, but in the game, there isn't an equivalent model to the Manta. It's like it is Forge World's Tau Titan is essentially what it was. Except this model is from 2000. I think it's from 2005. It's from 2005, so it's pre. The only Titan that existed then was the Warhound Titan Scout. So it's pre the two bigger versions by decades.
Oh, this is the biggest model ever, right? Surely.
I think this has got to be. I think maybe until the Warlord Titan, this has got to be the biggest Games Workshop model, and that means this is the biggest Games Workshop model for about 15 years, or maybe 10 years. It's absolutely enormous.
It's ridiculous.
A lot of people now mistakenly call it the most expensive Games Workshop model because it costs £1,100, and you can buy a Warlord Titan body for less. You can buy a Warlord Titan body for like 1,050, but then you have to buy all the guns. But the Manta is essentially, in game terms, it was the Tau made it to fight against Titans. So Forge World brought it out so that so Tau players could fight against super heavy units. And in the lore, the Games Workshop brought it out in the Imperial Armor 3 book. They brought it out as a crossover between the Tau fleet in Battlefleet Gothic and the 40k game and Epic Armageddon. So there was an Epic model of it, and there was a Battlefleet Gothic model of it, and there was a 40k model of it. Except 40k model.
What are you supposed to do with this model if you own it? Do you hang it on the wall like you've killed a trophy buck or something?
Hang it from the ceiling like you did with your airplanes. But
It weighs
cool
a ton.
It's got an inside, isn't it? It's got an
It
inside.
comes, for £1,100 you get all the models inside, all in there stacked, ready to deploy, which is pretty cool.
It's got like some pretty decent models on it's got like a decent amount of models on the inside there as well, like some battle suits and all sorts, doesn't it? It's fucking crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, this might be a little bit before you guys this time. We're going on another blast from the past with Stony here. Like, do you guys remember Manta Force? That was like these toys that was like you open them up and they had other toys. It was a bit like a kind of a Russian stacking egg until you got down to these little tiny men that are on the inside.
No.
Well, I think that there's no coincidence that this is called the Manta, because this looks exactly like a Manta Force toy that came out that was literally exactly the same as this back in the olden days.
I always imagined it was just because it looked like a manta ray.
Well, that as well, maybe.
we have now in front of us the photo of one of the battle scenes from Warhammer World, where on the Tau side you have a manta ray ready to deploy, or just deploying its cadre of warriors to the battle scene to hold the line against the Imperial warlord Titans, supported by Warhound and, I've forgotten its name, the middle class standard Titan.
Reaver, I think.
The Reaver, that's it. The Reaver class Titan that's being blasted by some battle suits that are really dynamically posed with flames blasting them on their top carapace.
If you've never had the joy of going to Warhammer World, we'll put this picture up on the YouTube because I took it.
Yeah.
But it's, in answer to your question of what do you do with a manta ray, Stoney, I think if you've got enough money for a manta ray, you've got a house with a room to stack your Warhammer in.
That's it. It's for a very special. Select dealer.
I watched. I getting ready for this episode. I watched a couple of videos on YouTube of people building this kit, and I was thoroughly impressed by the quality of the resin casts from Forge. Like the model is massive and it's very curved, and they're from obviously they still make it now, but from 2005, like they're massive sections of resin castings, and they're like properly curved in all different directions, and they look really cool. Like it's a proper, you buy, I guess, like a Titan, you buy it, you really have to invest a lot of time into building that kit well, so it doesn't fall apart.
I wouldn't even know what to glue it with. You've had to use no more nails. The pieces are so heavy. You couldn't.
You have to pin it with epoxy and.
Yeah.
Are these the biggest individual pieces of any kit?
I imagine
it certainly
so,
looks like it must be.
Massive. Yeah. I wonder if you can guess though, because I have in the book in Imperial Armor 3, I have the 2005 data entry for the Manta, where you could play it in 40k, and obviously that's very out of date. But I wondered whether you could guess how many Tau fire warriors in game you can transport in the manta ray, if you both want to have a guess.
100.
Yeah, I was going in the hundreds. I was going to go higher, 300.
And the answer is 188.
So, Stoney, good work.
Stoney, yeah.
That's a lot. That is crazy. And how many wounds does it have, Matt, if you've got the data sheet in front of you?
Yeah. Okay, ready? It's before wounds, though.
Okay.
In 2005, it's 1,999 980 points, and that seems very high. I think that's a lot higher than, to put that in perspective from memory, in the same era these books were written, a Baneblade is about 550 points.
Wow.
And this is 1,980 points.
I mean, in a way, there is a logistical thing. Like the amount of space that takes up on a battlefield is almost kind of like an army's worth of models. So you have to be like, right, points wise.
It essentially can carry it. You can put on. It has 2 transport decks. On the lower transport deck, you can put 4 hammerheads or 4 devilfish troop carriers with the troops in. Yeah. And on the upper deck, you can have 50 crisis battle suits, 25 broadside battle suits. Yeah, blah blah blah. But can you remember armor values?
Oh yeah.
So the front armor value is 13, so it's not as strong as a Lehman Russ. But when you have, so it's a super heavy. So in the old days when they did super heavies, you get the structure points. So every time you would essentially blow it up, you'd lose a structure point. This has got structure points of 10. So you have to blow this thing up 10 times before it actually blows up.
Wow.
That's pretty... it'd absorb a lot of firepower. So I've got 4 up in vulnerable save.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, you don't want to spend like fucking coming up on $2,000 or something just to have it blown up in the first turn. That shit's got to last until the end of the battle every time.
Yeah.
You know? Like fucking hell, I'd bring that shit to a 2,000 point game if I'd spent my money on that.
Oh man, I don't think you'd be popular.
Oh yeah, fuck that. Tell that to my
just
bank
walk
manager.
In, plop it on the table and shout for the greater good and just watch people in front of you crumble.
Okay, everybody, you've heard the normal topic generator, which was the show part. Well, now we're going to do the random topic generator, where we pick a topic at random using the company dice, which I believe Welshie has hot and ready to go.
Of course, they're right here.
They're itching to go, so roll the company dice.
And it's a 1. Well, we've just seen the final display at Warhammer World, but I wondered if you guys had control over curation of the Warhammer World scenic rooms, what would you pick to put into one of the cabinets?
I have something right away.
All right, what you got?
I would have an absolutely enormous siege scene of the Death Corps of Krieg.
Nice.
Doing some sort of like massed infantry assault across no man's land with the second wave in the trenches, against some kind of heretical guard force, or maybe even the Tau. Maybe that would be interesting. Like super high tech technology meets human endurance and grit, and unlimited resources meets silly fish camels.
Yeah, so sort of technology versus good old fashioned. Yeah.
Right. Great coats and shovels beat pulse lasers and whatever.
Okay, so that'd be quite nice. So what would you do? Where would it be set? Would it be set in a kind of a grimy trench warfare or a futuristic world?
No, I think
grimy trench warfare.
Grimy
French warfare, grimy trench warfare, and the tower all painted in bright colours, and all the other guys are painted in like.
Yeah, I think that it'd be like the tower have got like almost like we saw with the Warhammer World scenery, where they have the tower scenery is very like, it's white, it's high tech, it's whatever. But maybe even take it one step further, where the tower had like, they almost had floating scenery. So the tower, it's like an imperial world that the Death Corps are defending, and the Tau are bringing in to fight against this unlimited attritional warfare that the Imperial Guard can use, and they can't sustain the casualties. They bring in like floating bunkers and floating fortifications, so they've got like proper high tech.
Oh, cool! So getting a bit Avatar-y again.
Yeah.
Some floating buildings around. Yeah, nice.
It's just this wave of dirty trench coats running at them.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think
cool.
fucking
All right.
Cool.
Nice. Welshie, what have you got? Anything?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate enough to go a few times, so I know what's there. And I think what's missing, I'd really love to see a really brightly painted warp battle scene with the demons from the 4 gods in each corner kind of fighting into a pit in the middle, like chaos fighting amongst itself in the warp. In these
cool.
new bright paints that they've got would just look great, I think.
Yeah.
You could do like one of the like you say, like a big hole in the middle. Like, what's that picture of that scientific hole? Like a picture of a black hole or whatever.
The blue hole in the sea.
So make like some crazy like big hole in the middle of the battlefield, and everyone fighting on weird angles down the outside of it and stuff.
Yeah.
On my orifice.
Yeah, I just think that would be great with the colours that they've got now as well. Fighting over the chaos orifice.
Oh, that'd be sick.
That'd be wicked. Okay.
All right, cool. Well, you guys have both got some pretty cool ones. So, like, mine is a little bit different. So, picture the scene. You come up to the counter, right? There's 3 printed out pieces of paper on the back wall that say in Comic Sans, Space Hammer 4000, right? and then you look down and there's a bunch of Star Wars characters, all like with guns and stuff on bits of from Star Trek and all different like stuff that is not Space Marines or anything like that, all just there at the end, and just to kind of, I don't know, confuse people at the end of the museum. Just be like, oh, now our guest exhibitor Tony, and then there's this exhibit of Space Hammer. Another thing that might be quite fun is if you just made like a thing of a bunch of Catachan guys, and then they're like, you got one guy digging, and then you just make like an ant farm in there, so there's loads of ants going around, and they're all being like, oh god.
This is the invention they need in Warhammer World Curation. You'll be introducing a Madame Two-Sword style bent over Shadow Sun and Zillan's rope next.
It'd be cool if they did like a Battlefleet Gothic space scene, like a space battle over a planet. That'd be cool. And they somehow made like a 3D planet that kind of glowed with light, like a planet reflecting light. And it's
but
like
they just did it with those Star Wars toys. That's my one. Yeah, they just got out those Star Wars spaceship toys.
Someone had to keep throwing bangers in to like light it up. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's another successful topic randomly generated.
I don't, just sitting here and thinking about all the amazing models Games Workshop are bringing out and all the other stuff. Do you think maybe Games Workshop have got themselves in a proper corner with the Tau? Because there really isn't that much about the Tau that is Games Workshop, and with their new modeling technology, almost their new style, their new aesthetic style to their models, the grim dark, etc., everything we've spoken about before. Maybe they haven't done a model update because they can't do a model update because it's so not Games Workshop.
I think that's the opposite. I really think that they're going to Necron the whole thing. Like, I mean, I'm if anything a very amateur level model designer or whatever, but like when I look at that range, I could see the updates, I could see it in their new style. Well, absolutely.
What would 100%. You do? What would you do?
I mean, it's hard to describe, but I can just see that new style changed over. I can't specifically say, but I can just see those like update, because that is essentially what the ranges have been, is like model updates. And I can see those models updated in the new style in my mind. But I think that it walks that line perfectly. Like maybe before in the range, they were seen as too cartoony, whereas now they actually fit kind of like an update of them. Their models could fit really well into this new style, I think.
I think you're going to see more curves and less angles.
Yeah.
If you look at that new Shadow Sun armor, it's very curvaceous. It's more like the ghost keel.
Yeah, curves and textures, like,
like cars from the 80s were so angular, and then they became very curved, and now they're going back to a kind of sharp, pinched, formed metal. It's that kind of cycle of design.
Yeah, well, that's quite interesting, because from what you've both just said has made me almost I mean, I didn't have an opinion coming into my original statement, but what you've both said has made me feel like actually maybe I could imagine that the Tau actually gives Games Workshop an avenue to bring out a kind of Warhammer Age of Sigmar style army in 40k, where they have the crazy that Age of Sigmar came out and it's got like crazy injection molding technology with these crazy ghost figures and stuff. And actually the Tau, something like the Tau, they could do something really clever with the Tau, because something like the Imperial Guard, you can't do that with, or Space Marines, you can't do that with. But the Tau, they could do something really interesting with. Yeah. Maybe that could be quite interesting.
One of the things I don't like, again, I'm coming at this from a design point of view, but like one of the stuff you call all that sort of Tau armor, like hard edge design, where it's all these really like straight lines, like armor and, kind of things like that. So, and I think that they really fill that gap of people that really like that stuff. So I think that we'll still see a lot of that hard edges and things like that, but just with a more of this kind of sort of cartoonish softening, like hard edges on steeper angles and things, just to kind of accentuate them and caricaturize them a little bit more. That's how I kind of see it going. Yeah, definitely. Like you're saying, if that with this new technology and stuff, if they put like they redid Vespids or even the Kroot or something like that, and they, that those models would look fucking cool.
There's also things that we've seen other ranges get, which they don't really have a version of. I think scale's an interesting thing, because they're not going to come up with a sudden bit of lore that makes them Primaris scale. So I think you'll get things like jump pack infantry, which you got recently for the AdMech. You've got various versions of that. The sisters have got that jump pack infantry, something that increases the scale without changing the scale of the body, because they do look too small. Point. So the model needs something else. I think that kind of thing, and the Xenos and the tanks. I think the Hammerhead, like I say, just needs a complete rework, even to be in line. Like I wouldn't expect a Storm Surge update because it still looks great, but a Hammerhead that looked more in keeping with the Storm Surge would be excellent.
We've shone a light into the dark recesses of the Eastern Fringe. Are you bored of the Tau?
I can't even talk about the Tau anymore.
So bored of the Tau.
Bored of the Tau. Outrage! Like, just I don't even know how we went that long.
Oh God. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this last part of the show where we do the Lords of Lore quiz. The quiz where I pit Matt and Welshie against each other to discover who is the Lord of Lore. And guys, have you ever done a crossword puzzle?
Yes.
You know they exist, right? What they are, right? But then, like, there's some they do the cryptic clues, right?
Oh yeah, I'm no good at them.
Yeah, no one is. That's the whole point of it. Well, this time round, we're doing Warhammer 40,000, but cryptic clues, kind of cryptic clues. Right, so.
Okay.
So first question on the cryptic clues is, what would you get if you added Dark Angels to Emperor's Children?
Cherub?
I'll give you a clue. The answer is a number.
I can't remember the numbers.
4.
4 is right, Welshie. Well done. Point to you. Okay, so the second clue is Forbidden Bookhouse.
Black Library.
Black Library, Welshie. I think you just beat Matt to it again there. That's 2 points to you. Third clue is, he is to the lion what Horus was to the emperor.
Luther.
Oh, Matt. That's got to be Matt.
I think Matt stole it from my Lou, but yeah, he's right.
He still got it.
God damn it.
Fourth question. Xenos travel system.
Webway.
Webway, Matt. It's 2 apiece. 2 a cryptic piece. Okay, next question. Ancient Ambassador.
Arak.
Ambassador.
Zote,
Welshie. 3 points to Welshie. Next question. Shit car. car. Yes, Matt, that's
He
right.
didn't even say it properly.
The AVTD.
You said it in a way which I understood.
The AVDD.
Got your Matt full on. Right, that's 3 apiece. Okay. These keen recruits flew at the chance to join.
Vespid.
Oh, Matt, yes.
Oh,
4 points to Matt there. Okay. Both a beloved family member and a treacherous imposter.
Alfarius.
Nope. Do you want a clue?
Yeah.
Both a Xenos beloved family member and treacherous imposter. Who's the head of a family? What do they call
The
the person?
Godfather.
Patriarch.
What? Maybe.
Is it Gene Stealer
maybe.
Patriarch?
Gene Stealer.
Yes, that's right. Gene Stealer Patriarch, Welshie. So that's 4 points apiece.
Ooh.
Coming on to this, the final question. Would you Adam and
Well,
Eve
this
it?
is actually a tie break.
This chapter's literary influences really helped stoker up a lot of interest in the early
Vulcans.
90s.
Blood Angels.
Salamanders.
Blood Angels. Welshie.
Bram Stoker.
Welshie taking it
Vampires.
away. Welshie.
Oh, yeah.
5 points and taking it away. And this week's real, actual, honest to God, Lord of Lore, neck and neck for. So thank you, everybody, for listening to this. I've been your host, Stoney. Say goodbye, Matt. Say goodbye, Welshie.
For the
Bye,
greater good.
everybody.
And all of the Tau Empire, because we love them.